Hi, my name's Chris Brookman from Back to Earth, and today's how-to video is going to be on how to apply the UdiPERL finish render to a render wall. Now, it's a very simple render. It goes on very, very thin. The thinnest aggregate is a 1.5 mil aggregate. That goes on at roughly 2 mil thick. And I'm going to demonstrate how to put that on now. Okay, so the first thing to do is to mix up the render. It does need to be whisked up. But you don't need to add any water, nothing needs to be added to it. You just simply whisk it up just to make sure it's all the same consistency in the tub. So before we actually put the render on, the plinth area needs to have had the Udi base plinth slurry applied to it. So that's applied with a brush. You mix it up as a slurry, apply it as a brush up to 300 mil off the ground, and then once that has dried, normally 24 hours after it's been applied, you then apply the primer to the whole wall, and that's what we've done here already. Starting at the bottom up, this is quite a runny material, so don't overload your hawk when you're putting it on. Do get used to it if you've never used it before. It's quite simple, just put it on the wall. One useful addition actually is often a clean board or a clean piece of plastic underneath the area that you're working in, because it is quite a runny material and it's quite easy to drop bits when you're actually applying it to the wall. So doing that, then you can at least scrape them up and make sure you use them. So small bits at a time, just apply it straight onto the wall. Now, one thing a lot of people try and do is actually plaster it like a skim. So if you're putting on, say, a skim of multi-finish or something, you'd be putting that on 2 or 3 mil thick, and you're actually trying to create a sort of a layer. With this material, what you're doing is you put it on, build up an area like this, and then you really need to scrape it back as much as you can. So you let the back edge of the trowel really press it back into the wall. Like that, so that you really then spread it out. It's always easier to start at the bottom and work up, and you can basically drag the render up the wall. You need to go straight over this with a trowel, which we'll do in a minute. On very hot days, that means that you need to keep it protected from the sun to avoid it drying out. If it dries out, it's very difficult to get a finish on it that is actually going to be acceptable. Keep dragging the plaster up the wall and keep really getting it on very thin. This is the 1.5 mil aggregate that we're using here, and so we're aiming for about a 2 mil finished thickness. So we're really dragging it as much as we can, spreading it out as thinly as we can, whilst obviously still getting cover on it. You've always got to remember to keep spreading it out, because it's quite easy to build up quite a thick layer, and if you're using 4 or 5 mil when you should be using 2 mil, then obviously you're using twice as much as you should be. Each 25 kilo bucket you should really be able to achieve 9 to 10 square meters quite easily. The manufacturers recommend up to 12, but we take a bit more of a pragmatic view, and 9 to 10 is what most of our customers achieve. So looking down at the ground, we're not doing too badly, but we do have a bit of wastage on there. And because we've got a clean bit of plastic here, we can simply just scrape that up and actually use it. If you're worried about it having dried up a bit, or if it's stiffened slightly, then you can just add it back to the tub and whisk it up, obviously making sure there's no dirt or bits of stone or anything else in it. Okay, when you're getting up to the corners of reveals, it's best to put the plaster at the edge and actually work away from that edge when you're actually plastering, and then when you're rubbing up, you actually need to work towards that edge to make sure that you get the right texture right up to the edge. And then one last scrape over. Try and remove the excess, of which there is quite a bit. So you'll hear from the trowel noise that I'm really scraping it over, and the back edge of the trowel is really just bouncing over the grit. So it's the grit is actually setting the depth of the render. Tidy up this edge a bit.